last-minute shake-up at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning, Ryan. Is okay.
And staying in front of the day isn't always
Nice,
as simple
Ryan.
as 1,
What's
2,
up?
3. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
What's the latest on creatine?
I'm going to get back to you on that.
let NASM1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
Hey everyone, welcome to Strong Mind, Strong Body. So I'm wondering, do you feel like your brain is wired toward the negative? Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat here. It turns out that all of us, we have these brains that are wired to focus on the negative. It doesn't make us bad people or negative people. It just means that that's kind of a defense mechanism that is kind of hardwired into all of us as humans. So I'm Angie Miller, and this is Strong Mind, Strong Body. And today we are going to talk about how to stop negativity bias, specifically some simple mindset shifts that your brain, that we can help you kind of rewire your brain and think differently so that you can cultivate a more positive mindset. My guest today is Jan Raeder, and I think she's just a wealth of knowledge. She's an author and a well-being educator. We're going to talk about Jan's M.O.R.E, M-O-R-E framework and her Well-Being Wazas. So you're going to walk away with some simple science-backed shifts to help stop negativity bias in its tracks. So I'm going to bring Jan in and have her introduce herself. How you doing, Jan?
I'm doing very well. I'm so glad to be here.
It's really good to have you here. So can you give us a little bit of background about you?
Well, I have 35 years in teaching martial arts and meditation and yoga. I returned to higher education in 2013 and got a bachelor's and a master's in well-being education. And I decided that I wanted to help people who wanted to be coaches, because you really have to be sort of a scholar practitioner to help folks. So I wanted to provide a lot of information where that you'd have good resources as a coach, because that's really what's important, is to have these good vetted resources. At least from my perspective, I like to look at the scientific. I'm kind of a sciencey person. So during the pandemic, I decided to write my book, which is based on a course that I taught about well-being theory. And I put more into my book actually than my course. And that's, I guess, what we're here to talk a little bit about today.
Yeah, and I think that's well said because I think that at the end of the day, we want science and we want tools and that we can bring in our own personality and our own warmth and our own compassion. But all the warmth and compassion and all of the, generosity toward the human spirit in the world is only going to go so far if it's not grounded in science and if it's not grounded in just some tools, some positive tools to help coaches. So I like that framework. So your work specifically, if I understand it correctly, it centers around reframing thoughts so that we can boost more joy in our everyday lives. But can you help us understand from a more scientific lens what happens in our brains when we ask ourselves what went well instead of dwelling on negative thoughts?
Well, the what went well exercise, which is definitely one of my well-being wazas. I love that one. I think it's fantastic. It's different from a gratitude list. I think gratitude lists are great, but sometimes people can think of them as tedious. I know myself, I'm not a journaler. So, but the difference with what went well is you want to think about why that went well. So, take a small example. Your significant other maybe brings home your favorite ice cream for you, and the reason that was a great thing was you never asked them. So you're starting to get your brain to go away from like you mentioned earlier, we are hardwired to be negative, and that's as a survival mechanism. So we kind of have to practice regularly. It's not, even with these exercises, you have to practice them regularly. It's kind of like your body, and you can't just go, okay, well, I'm going to work out for 30 minutes today, but I'm not going to do that ever again. So you have to do it on a regular basis. But the why is the big difference, because it shifts it from just, oh, I'm grateful for that. It shifts it to a meaning. It gives me meaning for why am I grateful for that? And then I start to look for more things that I'm grateful for. So instead of looking for all of what's wrong in our lives, which this is not a Pollyanna kind of thing. We know there's wrong things, but this builds our resilience to help us to deal with things when they are negative. But we look for more positive things, and we're not really taught that, unfortunately. So I like
Well,
this. I like this exercise for kids too. It's a great thing to do with your kids.
right. And what I heard in there was the key word to me is meaning. We're looking for meaning. When we say what went well, we're asking why, and then we're uncovering layer after layer, like peeling away the layers of the onion. So what went well? My husband brought me home ice cream. Well, why is that? Why is that a good thing? Well, because I love ice cream and I didn't ask for it.
Right.
So why is that so meaningful? Well, because typically if he does something, I'm the one who initiates it and asks him to do it. So it just kind of centers around, it's peeling away the layers of the onion where you get to the core. And the core is that there's meaning behind it. It's not about the ice cream. It's about the intention that your
Right.
husband had when he brought you the ice cream. And I think, Jan, you and I both are trying to say, we're not talking about toxic positivity, like somebody's lamenting and they're crying and they've had a horrible situation. You say, well,
Right.
what went well?
Right.
That's that's a lot of things, but it's not what we're saying. We're saying that instead of just simple gratitude listing, what went well is a good way to look back at our day. I've done this exercise a lot. I used to do it with my college students. And I would say every night, I just want you to reflect on what went well today. And it could be the smallest of things or the biggest of things, because that was a way for them to reframe their mind so that they could settle their nervous system before sleep. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, I'm glad you
So
mentioned the sleep part, because I use it as part of my sleep routine. And it makes me, it sets me up for a positive day the next day. So that's excellent that you mentioned that.
well, yeah, and also my nervous system, I'm one of those people who, if I struggle to sleep, I'm exhausted all day long, and then I go to bed and my brain goes, "Bzz." And so
Yeah.
one of the things that I've tried is this whole, well, what went well? Okay. And then I find I fall asleep more quickly. So all of you out there who struggle with sleep, text me and I'll tell you it
It,
works. Okay.
it
So
does.
Jan, you've also developed the M.O.R.E framework, and you call it more M-O-R-E. And you say that it's an alternative to Seligman's PERMA model. And I've covered the PERMA model a couple of times with another guest and myself. And so I know that my listeners know about the PERMA model, but you did the M.O.R.E framework. Can you tell us your M.O.R.E framework, like one at a time? What does the M stand for?
The M stands for meaning. And the reason I picked more is I just wanted people to be able to remember it. That's why I titled my book Strive for More. So strive for more meaning, strive for more optimism, strive for stronger relationships, and strive for engagement. So meaning, optimism, relationships, and engagement. The reason I like the optimism a little bit more so than positive emotions. Optimism and positive emotions are kind of tied together, but optimism is a sense of choice. I'm choosing to be optimistic. And I think that's another really important thing for the listeners is that it's a choice, and it's your
Mhm.
perspective. You can choose to look at the negative, or you can choose to look at the positive. And it really all depends on what you decide. And I also talk a lot about the glass being half full versus half empty. And just as a side note, the glass is completely full because it's partial liquid and the rest of it is air. So scientifically, the glass is completely full. So it's a matter of perspective, but
Yeah.
that's it: meaning, optimism, relationships, and engagement. And I break that down in the book, and help with each one and give you some the well-being wazas for each one.
Yeah. Well, and also, I think the key word is choice, is
Yes.
that we do have to choose optimism, not again from a toxic positivity standpoint, but from the standpoint of all of us throughout our days, we're going to have the bad, the good, the ugly. It's just the way the world works. But whatever I'm focused on is what I'm going to invite more of, right? If I'm spicy, if I wake up and there's traffic and I'm spicy, and then I get wherever I'm going, and then I bring that spiciness into that environment, that's just a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Our emotions feed off of other people's and vice versa. So, do we want to be the one that's carrying the positivity? Or do we want to be the one that's bringing everyone down? Because it's like an emotional vortex. Like, where's the energy going? And to me, it always goes to like the strongest emotion. And
Yes.
so I always say to clients and everyone, where do you want the vortex to go? Because strong emotion always wins. It's like it can't be avoided. But what if there's strength in some optimistic outlooks? So I like that a lot. I love it's your choice, right?
Yes.
It's your choice to be positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you brought up strong emotions because Barbara Fredrickson, who has been studying positive emotions for, I think, 35 years, she elected to do that even when colleagues were studying negative emotions because those are easy to spot because they're strong, like you mentioned. But positive emotions are really so important to how we connect with one another and how we move forward, and we can either spiral upward or spiral downward. But you're absolutely right, it's a choice. It's a choice to be positive or negative.
Yeah, it really is. And you know what? Hey, let's face it, we're not always going to choose positivity.
No.
There are sometimes we're going to get lost in sorrow and grief and all the big stuff. We're human.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But when we can, right? Obviously, we're not telling somebody at a funeral to choose optimism or choose
Yeah.
positivity, but
Right.
I think we all know where we're going with this. So, Gian, you have a background in martial arts.
Hmm.
And I know that in your book, you say that that very much influenced your approach to mental wellness. You call it the well-being wazas. Can you just share one practice that has been particularly transformative for your clients, one of your wazas that's been particularly, I want you to wow me so that I can practice it today because I'm a little tired. I don't want to be spicy. So help me out here.
Well, the what went well is the, I think, one of the most important ones. But another one that I was thinking about that might be really good is building a positivity portfolio, and you can do that right on your phone. What I recommend to people, and they've done it actually for many different things, not just for being positive. Like if you're going on a job interview, you can use it for that, where you take pictures or gather pictures that are meaningful to you and then engage with them on your phone. Like, I have a lot of pictures that of mountain scenes and nature because that makes me feel serene. I also have some pictures of myself during my competition years, and that brings pride for me. But those are great that if you're just feeling a little blue or something is feeling a little off, if you just open up your phone and you can set up albums. I have albums for each of the positive emotions on my phone, which I talk about them. There's 10 of them in the book, and I just open it up and I look at those pictures and I focus and I savor those moments, and it helps me to remember about what is, again, that's what's nice about this PERMA framework or the M.O.R.E framework, is they all overlap. So we bring ourselves back to meaning. Why is that picture important to me? And then it kind of can settle us into what really matters instead of being upset about something or so on. And not to say that you shouldn't ignore being upset, but at the same time, don't let it pull you down because you have control over what you do for yourself. Um, that's the other thing that I think is one thing that I learned from my years in the martial arts and fighting probably about over 10,000 rounds with people is if you start to take things personally, then you
Mhm.
lose. And that's really difficult for people because if something's going wrong for you and you and I have a bad interaction, if I take that into myself, I don't know what's happening for you that day. What you say to me doesn't necessarily have anything to do with me. So I really would like people to stop taking everything so personally. Um, and part of building self-esteem and positivity for yourself is kind of can help mitigate that.
Yeah. What did you call that positivity journaling or what did you call it?
I call it a positivity portfolio.
Okay.
And
I
and
love
you
that.
can actually, if you want, some people that like scrapbooking and things, you can actually gather like mementos and build boxes or a little thing on your desk that maybe, I don't know, some trinkets that you especially like from maybe a trip that you went on or something.
Mhm.
Something that if you focus on it, it kind of lifts your mood.
Yeah.
So, but the phone is great because, I don't know, if you're sitting in the doctor's office and they're late for your appointment and you're starting to feel that bubble up, if you look at those pictures for a minute, that can kind of possibly settle you down.
Yeah.
I had a person, I recommended this before their job interview. They looked at letters that they had gotten about recommendations and so on, and they did all that right before their job interview, so it kind of boosted them up before they walked into the room. So it's a powerful thing.
Yeah. Well, and I want to kind of expound on that for a minute, if you will.
Sure.
My husband has something where he calls it attaboys, where he keeps a folder of like letters and
Yeah.
positive affirmations from work, like good reviews, blah, blah, blah. And I also was in a training recently, and there was a gal who made a Pinterest board of pictures of meaningful things that she learned throughout the whole 6 month training that we were all involved in. So, making a positivity portfolio can come in many different forms, but I do love that because when you're sitting in traffic or you're sitting at a doctor's office, just what can you kind of look at that will shift your mind out of, gosh darn it, this isn't going the way that I wanted it to go, to, and look how good my life is at its core,
Yeah.
right? Because at our core is what really counts. And then
Yeah.
there's these layers of little things that seem to set us off, but don't really have a huge, they aren't really very meaningful. And then also, Jan, I want to go back to you saying about people taking things personal.
Mm.
Um, I always use the analogy that there's two people and there's the table between them, not a real table.
Yeah.
And someone throws something out on the table and you have to decide, am I going to pick that up or am I going to leave it on the table
Mm.
with them where it belongs? And I always love that analogy because I'm a visual person. I need
Mm.
somebody to give me something to think about. And so that's where your power lies, is they put it on the table, you leave it on the table, you walk away. That's where your power lies because their emotion doesn't have to be your emotion. And I would go so far as to say their emotion is not an excuse for your emotion. It
Right.
is not an excuse to say, well, you're angry, therefore I got angry. Or it's like, really? Because we're not puppets. We don't have each other on a string. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good way of saying
Oh
it.
yeah, yeah. Well, I love that you just mentioned that because the Buddha actually talks about the gift. If you don't accept the gift, then it isn't yours. So when that person drops that on the table, you don't have to take that. You don't have to accept it. So I definitely I love that analogy that you just used too.
Yeah. I like the idea of a gift. They're giving you a gift. We don't always have to like our gifts.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
but it's your gift to be able to leave the gift behind and be able to
Absolutely.
keep your power, if you will.
Yeah, and actually
So,
don't re-gift it. Don't- That's
yes,
another step. Don't re-gift it to somebody else.
right, right. Somebody else who doesn't want that very special
That's right.
gift.
That's right.
So, a lot of us are trapped in negativity bias and we don't realize it. So, what are some warning signs that we're caught in this pattern? And what's your most effective well-being waza to break free from it?
Well, I think what I was thinking about this, the word languishing came up, and that's use that in the world of psychology. I'm sure you've heard it before. It's the between flourishing and depression. It's kind of like, I guess people now use the word stuck, where you don't feel interested in things, and maybe I think we all kind of know when we're being negative. I think, and the people around us are a good indication of that. Or if we all come up against crossroads and things that happen to us. So, and we can either be negative about those things. And at the beginning, if you have something that happens, like I had a medical diagnosis several years ago that was unexpected. And I started to get fearful, and I started to spiral down, and I didn't recognize myself. And then I had to stop that and say, okay, wait a minute. I got to figure out how to react to this. I have a choice to react differently to this. So I would have to say that what went well exercise, I hate to keep going back to that, but it's so powerful. It's so powerful to those little things, like you said, the core of what's at my life. What do I have? Like my family. I had my family. I still have my passions. I still can take a moment to experience joy right now. Mm-hmm. And those types of things are really powerful to kind of pull us back in from whatever it is we are spiraling down into. That why me? Why is this happening to me? We all do that, but we're trying to transcend those feelings. And I think that like I said, I hate to go back to the what went well, but it's such a powerful thing. And the other thing too is loving kindness meditation. A lot of people hate that word. When I say meditation, I myself am included in that because I have a terrible time sitting still. That's why I did moving meditation for 35 years. So, I know that you're a physical fitness person, and physical fitness is great because it's a form of moving meditation. So those things, any little thing that helps you to pull yourself out of that why me or feeling sorry for yourself, those kind of things that can happen.
Yeah. Well, and there's lots of ways to pull yourself out. And I think some of the ways that you've listed are perfect in and of themselves. And so I just want to take a minute to reset. So I'm Angie Miller. This is Strong Mind, Strong Body. I'm talking to Jan Raeder, and she is an author and a well-being educator. And we're talking about how do we stop this negativity bias that is hardwired into us as humans. So, so Jan, for listeners who are struggling to find joy right now, or for me who's trying to find my voice right now, what is one small evidence-based practice from your book that they could implement today that might help them to begin reframing their thoughts?
Well, the positivity portfolio that we talked about, because a lot of people can engage with that. You can actually add music into that too, because music is really powerful. And focusing on what you're grateful for, and what means something to you. Things that have deep meaning to us. And actually our relationships. That's one for me anyway, is such an important thing, is the relationships that I have in my life. They're crucial. There was a study that's ongoing now. It started out as the Harvard Grant Study, and it started in 1937. I'm sure you're familiar with it. Robert Waldinger is the head of it now. And that was one of the things they found, is strong relationships, building strong relationships was one of the keys to living a well-lived life. And the other thing that we should really focus on with your listeners is we're talking about subjective well-being. We're talking about how you view yourself. Like the two of us, we can't tell you that your life is great. You have to decide yourself. So that choice, going back choosing. The other thing that I love is getting out in nature, just just for a few minutes, listening to the birds, looking at something small. Like I was in a parking lot a few weeks ago, and things are starting to melt, and I'm watching a bird take a bath in a puddle, and I'm looking at other people just sort of scurrying around, and I'm saying to myself, they're missing the beauty of this little bird taking a bath. So, small things, focusing on those small things, they help us pull us out of this spiral that we can go down into. I hope that's something that's helpful for people, because I know it sounds like nothing and it sounds like common sense, but it's so powerful. I mean, it's really, really powerful.
Well, and I heard a lot of things in here actually. I heard just finding meaning. I heard positivity portfolios. I heard movement. I heard, the what went well. I heard lots of things that can help us. So, Jan, before we go, what is one way that someone can reach you or get a hold of your book?
Well, my book is actually, if you Google my book, Strive for More, it is available on Amazon. It's available on Barnes and Noble. I can be, I guess that one of the easiest way to get me is on LinkedIn, Jan Raeder. And then I do have a website, selfcaresensei.com. So any of those ways to get a hold of me are, I guess, the best way.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jan. Thank you so much for sharing this. I love this idea that our brains are hardwired for negativity. It's just part of our human nature. But how can we flip the script? How can we make conscious decisions daily, like looking at a more optimistic lens? So, thank you, Jan. And thanks to all of our Strong Mind, Strong Body listeners. We'll see you next week.